My name is Evangeline Radiola, and I am presenting how bits move within the mouth of a horse based on harsh or soft hands. The research topic is how bits move and interact with the mouth of a horse depending on how much pressure is applied and what the bit mechanics are. The purpose of this research is to shed light on what is really happening when you pull on the bit in the horse's mouth. The impact of the research will expose how much pressure is actually needed and will show how important researching and knowing what bits you use is. From same topic findings, it seemed that bits have different mechanics and skill levels that should be taken into consideration when using. According to Schneider's Saddlery, Horse Bits 101, Horse Bits and Their Functions, published August 18, 2020, a bit has been used within a horse's mouth since 3500 to 3000 BC. They often use things like bones, rope, and wood. Throughout the years, they progressed to things like bronze or nickel, and finally are commonly used steel and metal, though in recent years people have also been using rubber or plastic. The article goes through a list of bits and their usage, some of which are snaffle bits, Kimballwick bits, Pelham bits, Tom Thumb bits, correction and port bits, twisted wire bits, curb bits, roller bits, spade bits, spoon bits, and gag bits. Along with pictures, they go through different bit names within those categories of bits. According to UGA Extension, Bits 101, published February 20th, 2024, they explain the importance of choosing the right bit for your horse. The UGA Extension claims that a horse's head can be affected by the bit or some type of headgear, including the tongue, bars, cheeks, lips, palate, nose, curb area, and poll. A headpiece can affect 2, 3, or even all the points. When selecting the size of a bit for your horse, UGA Extension recommends considering the desired bit first. Then, after you have determined the desired mouthpiece, you should ensure the bit is the proper width for your horse. Bit width is the distance between two cheek pieces. The next step is material. There are a lot of different types of materials that bits are made with, and this step isn't as important. However, if you have a horse that doesn't produce much saliva, you may want to invest in a copper bit because it makes the horse salivate. Saliva is important because it allows the bit to slide smoothly within the horse's mouth, but the bit doesn't have to be made entirely of copper. Sometimes people use metal bits with copper rollers in them. According to Riding Warehouse, Horse Bit Parts and Mouth Anatomy Guide, published July 8th, 2024, they express the importance of knowing the anatomy of bits and where the pressure goes in the horse's mouth. There are 7 different parts to a bit: cheek piece, mouthpiece, bars, joint or link, bushing, port, purchase, shank, and curb strap or chain. Riding Warehouse mentions that the horse's tongue is made up of 12 highly sensitive muscles that react to pressure, pain, taste, and heat. Because of this, riders should keep this in mind when picking a bit. The next in mouth anatomy is the bar. This is the space between the teeth. The bit usually lies there. Some riders use wide-ported bits to reduce bar pressure. This section of the mouth contains a lot of nerve endings. Horses have a hard palate. Some bits focus on palate pressure rather than tongue. These bits are correction bits and spade bits. The researcher found that riders should be very careful when selecting what bits to use for their horse. They should consider their experience and the horse's experience. Different bits have different purposes. Some are meant to be harsh or soft for certain types of work. Riders should research the bits they want to purchase and what they're commonly used for, but despite this, your horse's comfort should be your main focus. To test these ideas about harsh and soft bits, along with how they move in the mouth, the researcher purchased a 3D printed skull. Then, the researcher grabbed a pink sock and filled it with rice to mimic a tongue. Afterwards, the researcher added 3 rubber bands to add skin. Finally, the researcher took Crayola air dry clay and red and white, mixed them to make pink, and created the hard palate of a horse. The researcher owns many different bits, but the researcher picked 4 of the bits to test it out. These were O-ring snaffle, Tom Thumb, no joint curb, and full cheek egg butt. The researcher tests them all out in 4 trials: harsh hands, soft hands, movement in the mouth, and resting in the mouth. My research question was, how do bits move and shape the mouth depending on how much pressure is applied and where? To complete this research, the researcher mixed the red and white Crayola clay. The researcher then pulled up a photo of a horse's mouth hard palate on the phone and referenced it as the clay was molded into the 3D printed horse's skull. After the researcher was satisfied with results, the researcher flipped the skull on its forehead and set it aside. The researcher grabbed a very old pink-colored sock, filled it with rice, and then tied the end off. The researcher grabbed the jaw of the skull and adjusted the sock to fit in the place. The sock resembles a horse's tongue. The thought process of having rice in the sock is that it will mold the bit while also keeping the shape of a tongue to allow the researcher to record accurate data. The researcher will need to wait 72 hours for the clay to dry before the researcher attempts to move anything around in the mouth. After confirming that the clay is dry, the researcher will reassemble the jaw to the 3D printed skull. Then, the researcher will grab all the bits listed: tom thumb, O-ring, full cheek egg butt, and no curb. The researcher will then go one by one and record the data on how the pink sock moves after the bit moves within the mouth. The researcher will record first with soft hands, moving the bit slowly and softly, then after recording the bits again with harsh hands, and so on. Results: the researcher used a 3D printed horse skull with molded clay as a hard palate to test 4 different bit types. The researcher wanted to see how the bits moved in the mouth and how it manipulated the mouth, along with how harsh the bit was. This would allow riders to be mindful of bits within their horse's mouth and take their horse's well-being into more consideration. The outcome was not what the researcher expected, but further inspection after more research into the different parts of the bit made the researcher realize why. The full cheek egg butt was the harshest. The second harshest was the tom thumb bit. Third was the no joint curb bit, and lastly, the least harsh was the O-ring snaffle bit. The variables of the study, the dependent variables, were the different bits used. The independent variables was a 3D printed horse skull, the red clay hard palate, 2 rubber bands, and position of tongue and mouth. The indent left on the tongue after the soft hands, tom thumb left an indent, O-ring snaffle left no indent, full cheek egg butt left a major indent, and no joint curb left no indent. Indent left on tongue after bit using harsh hands. Tom thumb left a major indent, O-ring snaffle left a minor indent, full cheek egg butt left a major, and no joint curb left a major. Bit pointing towards hard palate, tom thumb pointed towards the palate, O-ring snaffle pointed towards the palate, and full cheek egg butt pointed towards the palate. However, the no joint curb bit did not. Indent left on tongue after bit. The bit is resting, so I won't be touching it. Tom thumb left no indent. O-ring snaffle left an indent. Full cheek egg butt left an indent, and no joint curb left an indent. Discussion and conclusions. From the research conducted, the full cheek egg butt bit was the harshest. Second, the tom thumb bit. No joint curb bit was third, and lastly, the O-ring snaffle. However, the researcher did not expect the full cheek egg butt bit to be the hardest from resting in the mouth or to movement. My original hypothesis was the tom thumb due to the structure of the bit, though looking at a full cheek egg butt more closely, the bar is extensively wide and the joint connection was big. This bit didn't need the rider to use much force as due to it already being harsh in nature. Looking at other studies that the researcher investigated, most bits have functions and focus on certain points in the mouth. This was evident in my findings, such as no joint curb bit focusing on pressure to the tongue, but the full cheek egg butt put most of the pressure to the hard palate. Due to the researcher's findings, the researcher recommends focusing on a current problem within our agricultural society. Shedding light on different areas that need it will bring our community together and provide a better situation for both humans and animals. The researcher's impact of studying this subject will hopefully bring light to what we put in our horses' mouths. While not all bits are bad, you should consider a wide variety of things before you go out and just buy one. The researcher hopes with the current research, equestrians will take note of the bits they use and if that bit is necessary.